Okay, I'll speed it even further. Who I am, I'm an economist, agriculture economist. I graduated at UCL London with a Master in Agricultural Economics from Oxford, from the ancient Agricultural Economics Institute. And since then, I've been working for FAO, Latin America, and then to Rome, etc. What I'm not, much to Jaime's amusement, I am not an academic. I disagree with Jaime when he says that I say that I hate theories. I don't hate theories. It's just that I need concrete things. I need to be able to get things moving, give some sensible advice. So that's where we in FAO have an advantage in liaising with the academia and helping translate their work, their research into messages that help decisions at local level. Which means that FAO sometimes is very good at identifying trends, problems, because we are in contact every day with governments and how things can go on. And we need the academia to help us think through. And certainly this is a case of the project that has just been approved, and which the Meeting of Mefuni, which is the only official entity in FAO that is concerned with Meeting of Mefuni. And this is a work that I initiated in the mid-90s in an organization that would say, what are you doing? We are a rural organization. Cities, who cares? Well, things have changed. Local governments, no talk about it. And a very important element is the partnership. And I will just say that to all of you who are from academic institutions, but also civil society, we will be delighted to discuss with you how we can work together. You heard yesterday the presentation, the announcement of the partnership with Imperial College, very cherished one. We hope there will be more. Well, these are the, I will just try to talk about these three, because I don't have time to go on to the others. I just wanted to start by some challenges from urbanization. Most of them will be obvious to you. We have more people eating, but the number of people living close to or below poverty, the absolute numbers may be increasing, may not be increasing, but in most cases, and I'm talking about most exclusively about developing countries, it's a growing phenomenon. Slums and areas with few or no services, or even retail outlets, are of course somehow related to this urban expansion and the urban poverty expansion, and is an element of concern. Distances between home and work increase, and that leads to a different type of food culture and diets. The socio-economic characteristics of urban districts change. Areas that were higher income turn into lower income, and those lower income areas now find that they have difficulties in accessing food retail points, and this becomes a problem. And of course, more people in search for jobs, particularly youth, and this is the number one, the top item on the agenda of almost all countries, all developing countries. I will not discuss this. I'll just give you 1 second to go through this list. And these are just more challenges from urbanization. Many of these have been discussed yesterday and this morning. When we look at the urbanization and the food aspects related to urbanization, we're also considering some external factors on which those that are object of dialogue, the local governments in particular, have no control about. Well, now we see an international food markets increasingly competitive. So what I was telling one of the Italian presenters yesterday, how is urbanization a problem but turning into opportunities? And these are the things I was referring to yesterday. There is climate change, and this increases the risks, the external risk to the functioning of the system. There is a decentralization responsibility to local government authorities, and this is certainly a very interesting phenomenon that has taken place the last 15 years, with even local authorities that have access to more funds than ministries, more functions. They lack the technical capacity to fulfill those functions. Of course, not all of them have the funds. Now, one interesting thing that is, by taking a local approach, and which justifies much of our interest in talking to local governments, is the fact that often national policies, whether they are for food security or for rural development, they seem to fail to have an impact on the daily transactions, the way things happen concretely. And we very much hope that by bringing the attention away from the national to the local, we find ways we can increase the impact of national strategies. I mean, if your problem is a wholesale market that is being constructed 40 years ago and now is within the center of the city, there's no national strategy that's going to affect the negative implication of that for the overall efficiency of the system. So, as I was saying, urbanization also implies great opportunities. Fundamentally, an expanding domestic market. This will help achieve greater economies of scale. I'm talking from a systemic approach. Of course, reaping economies of scale may engender the risk of increased control of markets, of how transactions take place. You can reach higher efficiency level. You may be efficient where you are now, but with an expanding market, you can move up the efficiency scale. To do that, you need infrastructure, logistic, technology, human skills. You need particularly a lot of entrepreneurial capacity, and this is where it becomes very exciting. How do you help your local system develop in a way that it gives opportunities for income for women, but particularly for youth? And this I come back to the top preoccupation by governments. Anyway, there are a number of other aspects, but fundamentally urbanization is not to be looked as a problem. It really is as an opportunity, a source of opportunity, for income opportunity for all the partners. And of course, that source of income opportunity is not going to be at the expense of consumers. It doesn't have to be. problems are generated by a functioning system, food waste, food losses, they can become sources of income. And we are looking at how this can be, particularly for young people who can manage waste, particularly wholesale markets, reutilize waste, waste from established restaurants, restaurants. That how can that be turned into redistributed and received in a way that generates income for those who are involved. So we have a large number of questions, and I certainly will not going to discuss them. And so these are the concrete questions that we are facing, and we need to give answers when we talk to local governments. Some of these is a long list, and it certainly is not a closed list. I would just suggest, if you're interested, you can then look at the presentation that will be sent to you. So again, here's where we need you to help us respond to this question in a way that it turns into something concrete. Now, what is a system meeting urban food needs? I don't know, quite honestly. An easy definition is a combination of related elements organized into a complex whole. A nicer definition, a set of interdependent, vertical, horizontally interrelated groups of people, technology, infrastructure, relation, blah, blah, blah. Is it something that looks like this? I don't know. Is it something that looks like this? We need to understand, and it will change from situation to situation, but we need to understand how is it? Is it just as many think a supply chain? Well, this is a nice interpretation, but we are working on this, and we need you to help us. For the moment, this is the kind of concept that we are using. We call it system, but we actually, and it's, supply, distribution, demand, with intersectoral elements. Is it a system? It's actually a big chain, and a system is not a sum of chains. But that's the best we have been using. I'm showing this to justify our keen interest in moving into involving concepts like complex system dynamics into the revision of the methodology to analyze complex food systems, and any research institution that is interested in this topic is welcome to contact us so that we can work together on this topic. For the moment, we are working on a system that's got three main components: demand, food supply to cities. What happens? Well, production and the movement of that food at the beginning, at the entrance of the city, and then what happens to that food that's being redistributed in the cities. It's a very simple way. It's been proved so far fairly practical to analyze systems. It has limitations. It doesn't bring in in a sense, the horizontal relations. It doesn't bring in the effect and counter effect that looking at what happens at a specific level, wholesale level, intervening that would have on the system. And we need to understand those. Okay. So how do we basically, for the moment, when we start working with local governments, we say, what we can do for you is help you understand today how your city is being fed. So how is the system structured, functioning, performing? What are the interrelation between the system? Who are the actors, etc.? What are the problems that today are evidently limiting the performance of the system? And what should you be doing today? Now, then we sit down and say, okay, what is going to happen in 10 years from now, given those forces on which you have no control? 10 years, I'm sure you will understand, is no time. It's tomorrow from a development point of view. It takes 8 years from the moment you think you need a new wholesale market to the moment you open the door. And probably that investment is really out of date because you didn't think it through. So we sort of tend to look at today and in a 10 years perspective and say, okay, fine, what are the scenarios? What is likely to happen? What can you do? Where do you actually want, you as a policy maker, your people, your city to be at in 10 years from now? And from those policy priorities, then we can work out a path, a strategy, and an action plan.